Jonathan Hickman's House of X and Powers of 10 is cemented as an iconic X-Men comics classic, one of the most impactful superhero stories of the millennium, and the foundation for a fascinating Krakoa era for Marvel's mutants. But upon reflection, it's clear that House and Powers are heavily influenced by Frank Herbert's Dune, in ways that have only become clearer as Denis Villeneuve's Dune films have released to so much critical and financial success throughout the 2020s, and Dune's ascension has truly taken hold. Here's how Dune shaped the last 5 years of X-Men comic books. Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. If you like the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. It all helps more people find me and listen to the comics chatter, which helps greatly. Here on the channel, we do Krakin Krakoa videos. This is Krakin Krakoa number 219. All sorts of comics commentary. You can find me at Comic Book Herald Live, talking the day's theories and answering listener questions. Every Thursday I'm able, circa 5:15 Central. Let's get into everything you love about Hickman's X-Men is Dune. Before we get into the list, I want to clarify that assessing the influence of Dune on House of X is not any kind of effort to lessen the X-Men event, nor is it some sort of accusation that Hickman stole from another work. X-Men fans have already been down that well-worn path with Claire North's The First 15 Lives of Harry August. As Pablo Picasso is regularly attributed to have said, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And this decade is full of new sci-fi fans experiencing Dune for the first time and recognizing Herbert's grand influence on Star Wars in the same way that Herbert himself was influenced by the likes of Isaac Asimov's Foundation, John Carter of Mars, Islam, and on and on. Likewise, Hickman has not been shy about his Dune fandom. He's listed Herbert among his 5 favorite science fiction writers, kicked off his 3 Worlds, 3 Moons Worlds Worth Watching series with literally every Dune movie that's ever been made, and even the one that wasn't, and in 2015 Secret Wars called the second issue Dune Messiah. The second Dune novel is titled Dune Messiah, and flagrantly flaunted God Emperor Doom as a clear homage to God Emperor of Dune, the 4th book in the series. Hickman's whole comics writing career, merging sci-fi and pop action, is influenced by Dune, in the same way that all artists are influenced by the art they grew up on and loved. This alone should not be news to us. My interest here is more in delineating what is a nod, what is a wink, and what is a wholesale thematic mirror. It's the last category where I think we'll find the most revealing insights. Let's start with the surface-level nods that mainly fall under the category of homage. The most obvious of the bunch is Arakko, the long-lost sister half of Krakoa, the island nation where the mutants began, making up the whole of the broken land Okara. This is all mythos and mythology Hickman added as part of House and Powers. In Frank Herbert's universe, the desert dune planet is actually named Arrakis. In a 3 Worlds, 3 Moons comment, Hickman admits he was just mixing up the letters of Krakoa and had to laugh when he arrived at Arakko. We'll come back to the significance this decision later has in connecting X-Men to Dune. The clearest instance where I would say, oh, Hickman just straight up took that from Dune, is the use of Moira's No Place, a mysterious Krakoan room where Moira can exist outside of all prescient awareness, and what we are now learning in Rise of the Powers of 10 actually allows mutants to be hidden from the view of a Dominion, aka a god machine outside space and time. This is almost exactly the No Room or No Globe from God Emperor of Dune, I believe designed to escape the prescient future sight of God Emperor Leto II. In House of X number 1, it's also revealed that part of Krakoa's power is the offer of unique Krakoan drugs, flowers that when synthesized can offer extended human life, a universal antibiotic, and a cure for diseases of the mind, aka Alzheimer's and dementia. I am among many who have noted the similarities here with Arrakis' Spice Melange, a product exclusive to Arrakis and the most important resource in the universe. Much like the Krakoan flower, some effects of spice are to extend life, expand minds, and, well, I guess unrelated, turn your eyes very, very blue. Krakoa's governing body is named the Quiet Council, with 13 mutants, and sentient Krakoa itself, given seats aligning to the seasons. Professor X, Magneto, and Apocalypse initially formed the Autumn Council. This emulates Dune's Lanzarote, a governing body for the Great Houses, a la the Atreides and Harkonnens, whose name in the Scandinavian literally translates to Land Council. The most important votes within the Lanzarote come from the High Council, so in both naming convention and structure, Krakoa's Quiet Council is shaped by Dune. And finally, for this section, we have a key structural similarity, effective use of epigraphs suggesting a great history and depth to the world. House of X number 1 opens with the iconic "Humans of the planet Earth. While you slept, the world changed," attributed to Professor X. Dune opens with an even more substantial "A beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. To begin your study of the life of Muad'Dib, then take care that you first place him in his time, born in the 57th year of the Padasha Emperor Shaddam IV, and take the most special care that you locate Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there. Arrakis, the planet known as Dune, is forever his place." From Manual of Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan. All subsequent chapters of Dune and issues of House and Powers open with the same technique, as does much of the Krakoa-era comics, whether written by Hickman or not. This technique is not new for Hickman, who incorporates the same element into his creator-owned works, the Manhattan Projects, East of West, and most effectively, the as-yet unfinished Black Monday murders. The Hickman and Tom Mueller design comics pages utilize a recurrence of data pages to create the sense of an Asimovian Encyclopedia Galactica, with references to historical versions a la Xavier_Alpha that imply a vast chronicling of the era. Much like Princess Irulan's history of Muad'Dib, the effect is a sense of import, of a history demanding chronicling, not to mention a narrative effect of simultaneous determinism. What we are about to read has already been written, and the all-important gift and curse these works share: prescience. Prescience, the ability of future sight and prophecy, is a huge driver of House Atreides in Dune. Paul's messianic melange-enhanced visions of a conqueror's future shape his actions, relationships, and ultimately his fall. These abilities are taken to even more extremes through Children of Dune and God Emperor of Dune, the third and fourth books in the series, with Paul's son Leto II, aka the God Emperor Worm. Leto II's visions of the Golden Path and his greatly extended lifeline. Following Children of Dune, Herbert jumps book 4 3,500 years into the future. See also the time jumps in Powers of 10. These allow him to shape millennia of galactic decisions as Leto tries to break free from the great wheel of fixed destiny. House of X and Powers of 10 are loaded with prescience, to the point where the key mutant conflict is between two characters who know of the futures to come, Moira X and Destiny, and what you're seeing on the screen are their visions of possible timelines and lifelines that they've lived, basically their guide to prescience. For X-Men fans, Destiny's future sight is familiar, dating back to work from Chris Claremont in the late 70s, regularly used for relatively vague visions of things to come. Blob, Colossus will attack you to your right, until her death in the late 1980s. Moira's mutant ability of reincarnation, in fact the retcon to make her a mutant at all, is the great Dune-inspired revelation. Moira is reborn from the same starting point, in the same mother's womb with each recurrent lifeline, with the full knowledge of all lifelines she's experienced before. In the same vein, Paul's sister Aaliyah, the daughter of Lady Jessica and the Duke Leto, is fully formed in the womb, with not only all her mother's memories, but all the Reverend mothers before her. Over time, Aaliyah struggles tremendously with this endless sea of generations jockeying for space in her thoughts, in what, in retrospect, could have been a sign of Moira's inevitable fall in the Hickman-written Inferno. By virtue of her mutant ability to see Moira's grand plans before Moira can enact them, Destiny becomes a natural antagonist for futures in which Moira does not support mutant kind, actually burning Moira alive for an attempted cure of mutants in Moira's third life. In another nod and a wink, Orcus' lead scientist and the creator of Nimrod is named Dr. Aaliyah Gregor. Aaliyah being Paul's sister, and Gregor Samsa pretty famously is the OG guy who got turned into a bug in Kafka's Metamorphosis. Her husband, Erasmus Mendel, who gets turned into a Nimrod, is also named for an early Dune robot. Hickman is not Hickman. Hickman is not hiding this. Moira, Paul, and Leto II's challenges are very much the same. What do you do when you can see the future coming, know of its inevitability, yet yearn for a different outcome? As Moira tells Charles Xavier when she reveals her truth, we always lose. Paul and Leto II reach similar conclusions of the end of humanity if left to futures outside of their golden path. The particular challenges of Moira and the prescient Atreides claims are that they play out over the course of generations, but the actions of the now, terraforming Arrakis, creating the nation-state of Krakoa, etc., are crucial in building towards delivering a centuries-in-the-making strategic recovery. In a lot of ways, this is why I find the twist of Hickman's Inferno so fascinating. Who among mutant kind better understands the funeral procession toward the end of life than Moira X? Her great secret is that much like Captain Kirk in the Kobayashi Maru, she's changing the rules. No longer will Moira march to the grave for mutant kind. Instead, she'll find a path out through the only option she hasn't tried yet, joining the man-machine ascendancy through whatever means necessary. This manifests first through trying to cure all mutants, and ultimately through the comically heavy-handed transformation into evil robot Moira. This is yet another strikingly similar approach to defeating the long reach of prophecy. Moira cannot reach ascension to a dominion without varying alliances and compromises, just as Leto II cannot shape generations of futures and reveal the weakness of a universe controlled by a single entity without sacrificing his humanity to a sandworm symbiosis. In God Emperor of Dune, we spend an entire novel with Leto II, who has straight up turned himself into a big ol' worm over the course of centuries to ensure the eventual golden path of humanity. Of course, in doing so, much like Moira, Leto II in many ways transforms from Dune Messiah, a warning prophet, to villain, albeit much more subtly. Their prophecy of doom is eternal, and their will is near indomitable. Brings us to our next selection, Resurrection. In House of X number 5, it's revealed that the new mutant utopia of Krakoa has conquered death through the resurrection protocols. Through a detailed combination of Mr. Sinister's genetic databases, Professor X's psychic mental backups, and the Mutant 5 circuit abilities, any dead mutant can be revived and effectively hatched from the sacred soil of Krakoa. While this is greeted with exaltation from mutants and X-Men fans who lived through Marvel's Decimation era, it's also very reminiscent of Dune's Resurrections, aka the Bene Tleilaxu's Ghoulas. In Dune, Ghoulas are distinct from clones in that they are only recreated from the deceased and perfectly replicate a person's form and abilities. Originally, these are not able to access their former memories, the Professor X mental backups, if you will, until Paul awakens these memories in a Ghula of Duncan, Idaho, then known as Hate, supplied by the Tleilaxu to test if this very thing was possible. So you have Paul and Professor X playing similarly godlike roles in restoring a resurrected person's cloned body back to their whole self, and at least offering the possibility, the suggestion, of immortality. Even more than resurrection, it's impossible not to see the genetically altered yet shared DNA of the Bene Tleilaxu all over the role of Mr. Sinister in this era. Here's the Dune Wiki summary of the Tleilaxu. The customs and ethics led to widespread revulsion by the other cultures of the known universe, a reaction that did little to quench their hunger to subjugate their rivals. Their skills with genetic engineering, however, made them effectively a necessary evil. I mean, for the love of Belle and Sebastian, even the photo looks like Mr. Sinister. Despite Moira's warnings that Sinister is akin to the devil himself, Professor X and Magneto ally with Sinister for his genetic database mastery, even empowering him with the seat on Krakoa's governing Quiet Council. It is, of course, to no one's surprise that Sinister elevates to the ultimate era antagonist in the likes of Sins of Sinister or the concluding Rise of the Powers of Ten. Genetic manipulation is not limited to the Bene Tleilaxu. The Bene Gesserit Sisterhood and later Leto II both engineer centuries in the making breeding plants, much like the Chimera experiments and breeding pits Sinister employs in Moira's Ninth Life. Intriguingly, this is actually where Sinister most notably differs from his previous comics incarnations, seemingly less interested than usual in finding the genetic perfection through the Summers bloodline that he so deliberately seeks throughout the 90s, which more accidentally parallels the Bene Gesserit's genetic manipulations towards finding the Kwisatz Haderach, or Leto's efforts to find a genetic solution to prescience. Nonetheless, the threads of resurrection, Sinister clones, and carefully bred chimeras find a home in Herbert sci-fi just as they do in House and Powers. Let's return to Arrakis. While the naming of Arakko may have been a happy accidental anagram for Krakoa, that doesn't mean Hickman and later writers Jerry Duggan and Al Ewing didn't lean into the connections to the Spice Planet. The secret history of Arakko, as revealed in House and later Ten of Swords, is that the other half of Krakoa was lost to a demon dimension known as Amenth, where Apocalypse's wife Genesis and children, the first four horsemen of Apocalypse, led a society of what will become Arakian mutants in an endless battle against the demon hordes of Amenth. This further develops a mutant culture of mutants who occupied Earth before our familiar X-Men, fierce warriors, survival of the fittest, and a people daily tested by the very environment they inhabit. Yes, a people not altogether removed from Dune's Fremen. In the aftermath of Ten of Swords, the Fremen, I mean Eriki, need a home, which coincides nicely with the Krakoan government's plans to terraform Mars, making it a habitable mutant capital of the Sol system, but also changing the dynamics of the galaxy, much in the way Leto II's terraforming of Arakko and removal of works and spice aims to drive great shifts in the way of things. Al Ewing's most successful efforts here are in the theme rolling in the pages of Sword and X-Men Red, his cosmic X-Men works, where Storm and Magneto occupy roles similar to the Atreides, looking to both understand and merge with Fremen culture. Since Krakoan drugs are seemingly limited to humans, earthbound distribution, Ewing creates Mysterium, an extra-dimensional rare metal, think cosmic vibranium, which makes Arakko the source of the most valuable material and currency in the galaxy. In theory, this work seeks to establish Arakko as the actual center of Marvel Cosmic, much like Arrakis is the center of Dune's universe. It's a great idea, even if the execution over time has fallen off a bit. I don't know the last time we've actually heard about Mysterium. Big picture, the addition of Arakko and the many new mutants it brings to the Marvel Universe is an absurdly rich windfall of new character and potential story. The possibilities of fully developing characters like Iska the Unbeaten or Tarn the Uncaring, not to mention the millions of Eriki mutants as yet unnamed, is a much greater legacy than even the updates to an established property like Apocalypse, and its roots are undeniable. Herbert's sequel to Dune, Dune Messiah, is a deliberately challenging work that effectively pokes, prods, and undermines Paul's rise to Emperor of the known universe. In all honesty, I took a large gap in reading between Messiah and the third novel, Children of Dune, for this very reason. It's a purposefully unsettling reaction to our expectations for the hero's journey. In a lot of ways, though, it's a fascinating way of communicating a well-worn Hickman theme: beware of great men who seek to rule over all. This lesson applies most thoroughly to the three mutant leaders working most in the shadows to shape Krakoa: Professor X, Magneto, and Moira. Personally, I most connect the dark side of Paul's ascent to Emperor, even in his power, and Pauler is in many ways helpless to prevent the galactic religious jihad that occurs in his name, to Professor X. Charlie's been given the foresight of worlds to come by Moira, and understands full well there will be blood, but like Paul, he seeks the least damning path forward, establishing a mutant utopia that seems to deliver everything he's ever wanted. And, as is wont to happen, like Paul ends Dune Messiah blind, physically and prophetically, Professor X ends the Krakoa era alone, on the island, thinking he's sent nearly all of mutant kind to their deaths and growing a sadness beard. Magneto's hero's journey is more admirable, but equally tragic, as he attempts to break from the path of Krakoa by first joining Arakko, then sacrificing himself to defeat Uranos during Judgment Day, leading to his death. We've seen, now, in Resurrection of Magneto, he spends his days blind as well, left with nothing but the names of those dead at his hand or whom he failed to save surrounding him. Beware the great men who seek to rule all. They will not be the true heroes of a Jonathan Hickman story, nor Dune. The final connection: the rise of AI. In many ways, I'd argue Hickman's portrayal of machines and AI learnings is the ultimate threat to mutant longevity. The real danger in the man-machine-mutant struggle for power is least indebted to Dune. I'd say it's one of the most interesting ways the works diverge. The reason for this, though, is very much by design and shows a shared understanding. Frank Herbert's Dune removes AI as a threat to the Duneverse before we ever set foot on Arrakis. In Herbert's histories, there's an event known as the Butlerian Jihad, which seeks to quite literally destroy all thinking machines. Narratively, this allows Herbert to concentrate on a future-flung society not driven by computers, where in fact computational supremacy is given a human guise in the form of mentats. But to my mind, it also shows a shared predictive concern for the true threat posed by the potential of Dune's thinking machines. Where Hickman teases phalanx and dominion at the end of all things, Herbert sees the same, but removes them from the equation to avoid that end. Of course, even after this jihad, during Leto II's God Emperor reign, the technologically supreme Ixians redeveloped computers and navigation machines that helped to fuel the post-Leto scattering and desired continuance of human space exploration. Nonetheless, my amateur read is thinking machines are never quite central enough to Dune to truly overlap. For that, we'd probably have to turn to Ian M. Banks' culture novels, but what am I, a computer? I ain't got the brain power for that. Therefore, I'd call this a lighter connection that conceivably could have been cut from the video, but what's Dune is Dune. Final thought. I am an admitted Dune dunce. I've read these books exactly once. I got my degree in Herbert from an online academy without a .edu domain. There's probably a lot more from Dune you could pull in here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Also, for an actual Dune expert, I really recommend the videos of Danica19, which are awesome and come from a way smarter fan of the works. Share your thoughts on similarities or differences here in the comments. Dune what feels right to you. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to those of you supporting on patreon.com/comicbookherald. Big shout out to our mysterious benefactors. Thank you, Jesse W., Chris Murficka, Roosh, Mike Solomons, Treat91, and Marcus. I'm Dave. You can find all my stuff at Comic Book Herald. Like, subscribe to the channel here, and I'll be back with more comics commentary in the near future. Thanks everybody for listening, and enjoy the comics.